All right, hi everyone, and thank you for joining me for the North American slot of cracking productivity. We're gonna have a bunch of fun. Let me tell you how it's gonna work out. In the meantime, feel free to ask me questions in the chat or in my email if you're one of those who prefer to do that privately. I'll be checking those semi regularly. If you send me questions in advance, I've tried to incorporate them into what I'm covering anyway, so that should be fine. And lastly, before I'm getting started, I'm letting you know that in the end, I'm gonna list 7 quick hacks and also a free diagnostic, especially for you for attending. So do make sure to check it out. It's also gonna be the diagnostic is also gonna be linked in the email with the recording you're gonna get later. And that's not promised to be this one. It will either be this one or the slot that was earlier today. I'm gonna choose the one I think was smoother. You're gonna see if you are the preferred group. Now let's get going. If you don't know me, I'm Aviv Ben-Yosef. I'm a tech executive consultant, which basically is a title I made up to say I work with people who lead tech organizations to help them create amazing teams and help them grow faster than the organization so they don't get thrown out eventually or the organization eventually outgrows them. I'm hoping you can sense why this might be relevant. So let's talk about a very big part of that work, and that is improving your team. The topic of today's session comes from the fact that I've seen many people talk about it and ask me, why is my team like not getting better? Like I feel we're just about what we were a year ago. Maybe we're even worse. Maybe we're sliding. And people have this fear, and I get that. And today I want to cover a few of the things I recommend people to do to get outside of that jam. I will say that I'm going to list relatively quickly because we don't have too much time a bunch of different ways and tactics. And my intention was when compiling this that you will probably be able to choose at least one or two to start implementing immediately. That's my aim. Not that you'll be able to do all of these tomorrow, but you're going to choose two and start implementing those. And if you'll need help with that, you'll have the diagnostic. Now, let's start with laying the ground here for you to understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about growth and why it's critical, especially if you feel like your team is not improving or not improving fast enough. You've all heard about inflation way too much in the past few years, I'm sure. However, there's another kind of inflation you're not being talked about at all, and that is the talent inflation, the personal inflation. If your team is operating at the same level it was a year ago, if you yourself are the same like a year ago, you are not keeping up with inflation. You are no longer worth as much as you were a year ago. And I really mean that. I think we ought to keep growing. I think that once we stop growing, once we stop learning, our capabilities decline rapidly. And you might find that demotivating. For me, that's actually what makes me tick, knowing that I always have to learn and there's always something to learn. There's always what to improve. I don't want to feel like been there, done that. I want to always have something challenging me. I hope you have the same mindset. If you've taken the time to sign up for this, you likely are. So let's make the most out of that. Now, why do teams get stuck? There are a bunch of different scenarios. I'm going to list out a few real examples recently that came on my radar talking to clients and prospects because I think these are things that will give you some examples that are simple and straightforward. One, VP of engineering telling me this person has been not has been a so-so manager for over a year, and eventually I only after more than a year and after getting another person involved, a new manager of that manager to tell me that they agree with my feedback and everything, only then I gave that failing team lead feedback, and only then we started the pip. A year that that team had an underperforming manager who didn't even get the feedback that he was underperforming. Another example with a VP of R&D who did essentially the same, waited a year with a team lead who was not good enough and actually caused people to leave the company because they were not happy with the manager they had. The VP was aware of this and yet waited more than a year till eventually telling that team lead that he had to be moved from the position. Another example, I was working with a company and I realized that they had allowed a bunch of first time managers to take control of the most important teams and didn't give them any real coaching. And then a few months later, they were surprised that no one was learning. People seemed to be disgruntled about how well their managers were managing. And people were surprised. Like, yeah, you just put a bunch of newbies there. You didn't give them any help. What, you just expected them to be like Neo, in the movie The Matrix, where he gets plugged, he goes to sleep, he wakes up, I know Kung Fu, right? That doesn't work. That's not how you learn management. So, those are a few examples around how we, as tech leaders, VPs, have the responsibility of giving feedback, helping our people. And when you have a few of these happening, and you might think, okay, that's one manager. But if you have a few of these happen throughout a year, those really hamper how fast a team can learn. And what they do even more, if you're wondering why your team has stopped improving, once you allow these sorts of scenarios to continue for too long and people don't see you treating them, I know you have your excuses. You're so busy, and that team right now has to deliver, or that person is really critical, and you don't want them to leave if you give them bad feedback. Yeah, I'm not gonna list out all the possible excuses I'm hearing constantly. However, once you decide not to do something, or you postpone it because you've got your good excuses, the people around you know what they learn. They learn that that level is accepted. Even, it's not like they're telling themselves, oh, I want to be like Bob. Bob's not doing anything. Bob sucks. I want to be like Bob. No. But what is actually happening, often not consciously, is that they learn that, okay, if that's good, and I know I'm better, then I'm good enough for sure. I don't need to push. I don't need to try too hard. If they're not telling them anything, they won't tell me anything for sure. And that's bad. That's how we get these teams that are on constant plateaus. We don't want to be there. In addition, if you don't fertilize the talent you've got, it's not going to grow. I gave the example of my lime tree many times in my newsletter. We've got a lime tree. It's giving me more limes than I can handle. I'm making lime moncello. I'm making so many margaritas and so many mojitos when it's in season, when it's in bloom. We I can't handle it. Okay, I'm all limed up. I'm turning green in a second. Why? Because it got enough fertilization. It got enough water. And now it's really working. It's it's in the first few years it wasn't like that. We didn't know about fertilization. We didn't know that you need to put fertilizer. We didn't know how much water it actually needed in our climate. And once we unlocked that, boom, and coaching people is actually a lot harder because with a tree there's a delay, right? If I'm not giving it enough water, eventually I'm going to start seeing the leaves change, etc. I'm going to see that the fruit aren't big enough or something like that. But with people it takes even longer. It's not, a week or two till I close the loop. It might be months. So you have to be very vigilant. And lastly, if you don't focus your people, they're not going to grow. If sometimes the role of being a leader, a manager, is just to be a big lens. This is a diagram from my first book. When I say leadership is just a lens that focuses all of the different efforts and all the different things that we could be doing on one clear thing so we know what we need to do. And then, just like kids, my kids, burning paper in the yard because they have a magnifying glass. If you just put the yard outside under the sun, nothing's going to happen. Get the magnifying glass, make it focus all the effort into a single point, and boom, you've got smoke. Kids like it, and your team will like it if you focus them as well. So, let's talk about how you can rejuvenate your team. If you've got a team that feels like it's plateauing, how can you move them forward? How can you help them start learning again improving their productivity, have that itch. Well, one thing that I think we are constantly wasting is windows of malleability. What are those? That's whenever something happens that automatically makes people more prone to listen for changes, to expect changes. They're susceptible to change. They know that something should change or might change. For example, someone leaves the company. You have a new manager in place. You just had a reorg. Perhaps you're starting a new quarter. You are redoing the strategy. You had layoffs. All of those create windows of malleability during which it's a lot easier to push change. It's not like all of a sudden during an all hands out of nowhere, you're like, hey, from now on, we're going to do this or that. But when there's a new manager, when there's, if you're new in your role, something like that, someone just got promoted, let's use that to make some changes because people expect it. It's a lot easier. You've got an excuse. So if you've got windows of malleability, use them constantly. But if you don't have one right now, we can create it. You know how? 2025 is a great excuse. There's a reason we're doing this so close to the end of the year and the start of 2025. You're probably already thinking about things. You're going to display your quarterly plans or your yearly plans or whatever. Use that. Introduce it in a way that's going to create a window of malleability, and then decide that you want to redo a bunch of things. Let's reset stuff like reset our calendars, reset the processes, redo them because they've outgrown. No one has looked at them in a while. No, we refactor code. We don't refactor the operating system of the organization, how we manage it, how we lead it. But this is your opportunity, and also refactor whatever poor ROI efforts that you've got going on. Like if you've got a project that you're not sure about, let's change it. And we're going to touch that more in depth in a few minutes, but just so you have this action item, create a window of malleability with your 2025 kickoff and decide what you want to change. You can't change everything. Okay, I just listed a bunch of possible things. Choose a few and start with those. If you change everything all at once, it's not going to be easy and probably not going to work out. So don't do that, but choose the things that you think will make the most sense. And lastly, give your people a goal. When I see teams that focus way too much on technology or on clean code or on bickering inside and internally or about their titles and about promotions, I know that they don't have a real goal, so they're trying to create some sort of meaning in what they're doing. That's what good people do. They want meaning, and if you don't give them a goal that they can feel attached to, that they want to move forward, that they can see, they can sense it, they can reach out and make the change and deliver the code and see that someone's actually using it, see that the clients are happier, see that the business is fulfilling its all that it has planned for the year. If you're not doing those, blah, what are you even doing? And then instinctively, all of your good people are going to start making up their own goals. Don't do that. Give them a good goal. That's your role. Hey, that rhymes. I'm going to use that. Anyway, so to rejuvenate your team, make sure that you're injecting some windows of malleability, making good changes, giving them a goal to focus them on what matters, and start verbalizing this a lot. And if you want to start moving from pockets of mediocrity to an engineering team that is a center of excellence, you need to learn how to help them grow much faster. And if there's something that I keep telling people, it's that, and this is like my cliche, okay? I keep saying that life is too short to lead average teams. Don't do that. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your life on a team you're not proud of. Don't waste your people's careers. You owe it to them. You're doing them a disservice if you're not helping them grow and fulfill their potential. Do not do that. Ensure that you're leading a team you're proud of, that you can see and sense how it's progressing. And to do that, you have to see how you move from this mediocrity to something you're proud of. And maybe you had it and now it's about reawakening it within your team. Maybe you never really had it and now you need to start creating it. It doesn't matter. I've seen both scenarios. It is possible. Let me tell you that I've done it many times, but it does require effort and being relentless. So, first of all, to start making that change, accept in your mindset life is too short to lead average teams. Make sure that each one of the managers in your organization understands it. Okay, you have to communicate it, you have to show them what it means. If we have to choose between two hires, this has to be one of the yardsticks, at least one of them. If we're trying to decide how to approach something, think about it. Well, are we doing something we're proud of? Are we doing something that moves the needle, or are we doing just something that's gonna look nice on the engineering blog, but forgotten in a day, that's gonna get some likes on LinkedIn? Who cares? And as opposed to something we're gonna remember for the rest of our careers. That's what we want to do. Second, coach like your life depends on it, because it does. Okay, it's not a life or death issue, but it's a life of waste issue. If you don't coach people well, again, life is too short to lead an average team. You don't coach them, you're just wasting your short life doing that. Instead, make coaching your thing. And I know that essentially 95% of the leaders I'm talking to are not coaching enough. This is something that you ought to do. And I've got a bunch of material about coaching and installing a coaching framework in your organization. If you're not sure how to do that, let me know, write to me, and I'll get to that if we have time, or I'll send you the materials later. But one thing you ought to do is to make coaching your thing, okay? And make your manager's coaching a thing. It should be one of the ways you measure whether you're doing your role well. It should be how you decide whether you need to continue working on a specific thing or not. Do I feel like those people have what they need? Do they have their tools? Have they grown recently? And especially so, you need to be doing this with your direct reports, the leaders, the managers in your organization, and you need to teach them how to do it. Sometimes I come to companies just to, as a band-aid. I come and I teach the engineering managers how to coach well. And, that's fine and a nice amount of money for me, and I like doing that. But I tell my clients, a good VP in my book needs to be one who can teach this, because you're going to have a lot of managers going in and out of the organization. It doesn't make sense to bring in someone like me every time. If you need it, if there are specific reasons, well, we need extra help or whatever, okay, let's talk about that. But I want to ensure that the leaders have the capability of coaching their people and how to coach. So get that. And sometimes I say, this is teaching you how to fish. And this is what I prefer doing with people. And I think you ought to have this mindset. How am I teaching my people how to fish? And ensuring that you know how to be that annoying, guru who can teach them coaching. Because for some people, they hear the word coaching and immediately they're like, what? How do I do that? I've never coached. I've never been coached, maybe. How can I relay that? But there's no magic going on. Coaching is just asking a few questions, giving good feedback. And again, I can't double click into that today. And if you want more materials about that, let me know. But this is crucial. Next, find the bright spots and make them shine. Very rarely do I come across a team that's mediocre where there's no one really good. Okay, usually you have at least a couple of people who are stellar. And if you're thinking no, we all suck, we're all average or less than that, you've got a whole set of different issues, and let's use the diagnostic for that on our call. But otherwise, take those, and you know what you're gonna do? You're gonna launch those bright spots. You're gonna make them shine. Bright spots is a term coined, I think, in the Switch book. I had a nice dinner with one of the authors, and it was amazing. And I think that the bright spots idea, which is about in every organization, in every effort, there are areas where we're doing things well. We don't need help there. Those guys are doing it terrific. Alice is an amazing engineering manager. When you notice those, you know what you do? You make their efforts shine, first of all. So celebrate their wins, communicate, put them on a pedestal, make everyone see how much we value what they're doing, because we want people to start understanding these are our role models. Second, give those good people more autonomy and more agency and more authority so they can teach others and they can mentor, and maybe some of their time they're coaching. And once people know that they are the role models, they know that they can reach out to them for questions and they could be the champions of the changes you want to do in the window of malleability because they're already doing it fine. Have these people help you. You don't have to be doing everything on your own. It's tough as it is. Use the bright spots and let them shine. And actually, when they're coaching others, when they're put on the pedestal, when they're showing others and acting as role models, you know what's also happening? This is some sort of coaching for them. They're improving, they're becoming better in things they might not have known that they can do, or that they should do. So do that. And lastly, if you feel like you don't have enough of these bright spots to kick things off, inject them. Get some expertise. Hire an experienced manager. If you're replacing someone, put someone more senior there. Get a freelancer, an expert, a consultant to help you with something, and ensure that in your description, this is when I used to be a very expensive hourly coder, I used to tell my clients, for me, one of the KPIs is, can I teach your people to do this? Because I don't want to be here forever. I want to help you and move on. So this is the mindset you want. Someone who comes in and coaches your people, gets them to a new bar so that they can continue from there, and things don't sink down right back to where they were when that expert leaves. You don't want to do that. You want to constantly see people raising the bar with time. You know, this is the sort of inflation I'm for. Our talent just growing and growing and growing. And lastly, if you want to move to execution excellence, this is one of the hacks I'm going to mention in the end in the list, but I'm going to give it to you now so you can start thinking how to install it. 95% of the work done in your team should be showing value within a week or so. Okay, a day here or there doesn't matter, but that should be your default rule of thumb. If someone wants to work on something for longer than that without showing the value, they need to escalate to you to ask for permission. Okay, that's how rare it should be, and that's possible essentially everywhere. Really, you can do that. You need to ensure that people don't get sucked into refactorings and endless changes. Don't get sucked into battling bugs that are so hard to solve that they're not going to even be worth it. You want to ensure that they drive value consistently. Every couple of days, we're seeing something new, and that will only happen if you give them a hard limit. Things don't take more than a week. And then you're going to see the execution start really taking form. We're going to start seeing people gaining more and more momentum, because we don't get these lulls where you have so much time between getting something out and in people's hands. And this is how you get people addicted on impact. This is how you turn them from caring about, can I write Scala? Can I write Rust? I don't care, into, am I doing something that's helping the company, that's helping our customers, that's improving the state of the business? And for me, this is where I am, but I know so many people who care more about the tech stack. Well, sorry, I'm a geek, but as long as it's not assembly or something, I'm going to be fine. And you know what? Some of the best projects I had required some assembly. So do that if needed. And lastly, as we're coming to an end in a second, sorry, I need to catch my breath. Let's talk about how are you balancing this? Because if you have to inject this into an organization and you have these things that should create some long-term improvements, as I said, this is not something that you're going to just implement and tomorrow, boom, we're fine. You need to pick a couple and you're going to start investing in them, and you're going to see results within a few weeks and then move on to the next things I listed. So because this is something that's going to take time, you know what's going to happen. You're going to have the short-term fires nagging at you. So you're trying to look ahead and focus on what we're going to do. And the short-term is going to keep nagging you. So to balance this, here are a few things that you need to do to ensure that you're going to have more chances of executing the things that matter. First, find the low-hanging fruit and start with them, okay? And especially low-hanging fruit with visibility. If you deliver things within a week, like we talked about, and you prioritize things with visibility first, what it's going to do is start creating this reputation of, something interesting is going in engineering. They're starting to move faster and they're starting to fix things. They're starting to gain momentum and traction. And when that happens, first of all, you're building that reputation. People start expecting that, which is amazing. And second, especially if your organization has been underperforming or just not amazing for the past few months or years, you usually have a lot of people around you being, mistrusting, and you don't have a lot of leeway, and you're maybe even micromanaged. But once you start building this momentum and showing results and start building that track record again, you're actually building the trust or rebuilding it, and you're going to reduce the micromanagement and gain more credit within the company to make some more of these bigger changes. And this is not playing politics. This is actually, we're doing things, delivering value, which is by itself good, in order to gain the credit to do some of the long-term stuff also. And the long-term stuff is about, how do we coach people, and how do I teach my people what to do, and which sort of people am I going to hire. These are things that can take time. But if you show this track record, your boss or the CFO will trust you more and maybe give you more budget for injecting some help, for hiring people who are better and more experienced. Whatever. Let's find how we're going to use it. And that's what you need to do. And lastly, I want you to reward and focus on working smarter, not harder, because that's how you're going to get out of this mode where we're gonna have to deliver things and we want to be moving faster. So what can we do? Oh, I'm guessing everyone's gonna pull all-nighters to do both the long-term improvement and doing the regular work, right? No, let's improve, not just working harder, but find ways to work smarter. So anytime we have an issue, find the root cause, not handle the symptoms. So hopefully it doesn't repeat. Work on tech capital, which makes people faster, which brings you superpowers internally. I can't go into tech capital right now, but if you Google my name in tech capital, if you don't know what it is, you're going to find a ton of information. Consider AI tools, Copilot, Tab 9, Cursor AI to help your people get faster. These things build up. And, be okay with some good hacks. People use the word hack as a pejorative, but I don't agree. I used to call myself a hacker, not a hacker as in I hacked into system, but a hacker as in how we use it in the early 2000s, which meant that you knew how to make the computer listen to you, and you did it with some, with some that quid, if you know that word. You had that quid that allowed you to do things just specially. And I want to see people realize that sometimes we don't have to do things by the book. We don't have to do the perfect thing, but we find that hack, which is not ugly, but is creative and clever and gets things done. And I love those. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not a purist. And that's how you balance it and start injecting it. Okay, and now as I'm wrapping this up, um, I'm reminding you, you need to choose a thing or two and start implementing it. And to make it easier for you, I'm going to list now 7 quick-ish hacks that I think you can start doing and start injecting momentum into your team and crack productivity, help it um, get to the next level and raise the bar. Number 1, give your teams a single objective at a time. You can start with that. Kanban maybe, work in progress. Start by saying we have a single thing in the work in progress. That's what the team is doing. And before it's done, we're not moving to the next one. And this could be an amazing exercise. It doesn't have to be the only way you're doing things forever. But if you're going to do it for an iteration or two, you're going to see how people eventually start helping one another because they hate getting blocked and we want to get to the next thing. So it's not, I completed my backend stuff, but the front end isn't done. It's how can we get this thing done so we're going to get the next objective. And this is amazing. That's hack number 1. Hack number 2, list your Peter Pans. I call Peter Pan employees those who remain boys forever, remain juniors, people who are not growing. If One of your employees, if you have an IC or a manager who hasn't improved in the past 12 to 18 months, that's an issue. Either coach them, as I said earlier, coach like your life depends on it, or realize that this is not good enough, the feedback is not working, this is not a match, we need to do something else. Life's too short to do anything else. 3, consider who wouldn't you rehire now that you know them? Which projects wouldn't you have started now that you know what's going on? If you have any names for people or projects or teams that you would change or not do if you had, some hindsight, don't let it stay like that. Don't wait for the layoffs to come. Take action right now. Coach them if you're not happy with them, or replace them. Don't let them just wither in a position that's not right for them. Don't let that project continue if it's no longer worth it. Take those people, create a window of malleability and find something that actually has a real ROI that makes sense. Do that right now, and your CEO is going to love you. I can promise you that. Number 4, have a coaching goal for each person in the organization. That includes you, by the way. How are you improving? These goals are, personal goals and should be reviewed once every 2 months or a quarter and ensure that people move forward. How am I communicating? New tech skills, my understanding of the product. Have I done any innovation? Am I speaking up in meetings? Whatever. Have that. If you have those every 3 months, you're going to have 3 visible improvements in every employee at least a year. That's amazing. Do that. Number 5, same mistake, shame contest. As I said earlier, we want to be working smarter, not harder. Have a contest where whenever there's an issue, we have a root cause analysis and we see if which team is suffering from the same mistake, shame on me thing. And we're going to count those and see who's actually learning from their mistakes and who's just repeating them. Because let's make some new mistakes. We're going to have mistakes no matter what, but at least make them new ones. Number 6, meeting refactorings. And I talked about calendar resets. If you, again, Google my name, you're going to find information about how to do that. But you can start with something even simpler. Decide, for example, tell people that it is acceptable to leave a meeting if you feel like it's not giving you value. No one's going to get offended. All of a sudden, you're going to care about your meetings, right? Or the no zoning out rule. If you're on Zoom, there's no having the camera off or something unless you have a really good reason, like, I don't know, you're driving. Other than that, you have to be present. If you're in place, in an office, in a conference room, there's no, I'm on my laptop. No. If you're in this meeting, you're part of it. If you can't give it your attention, get out. For example, these refactorings make people care so much more about meetings, which make everyone more effective. There's no letting meetings run over time. The second it's done, goodbye. There's no getting to meetings if you haven't done your prep because you're wasting others' time. Tell them ahead of time. Doing these little things can really improve teams and sort of raise our pride in what we're doing. I care. This is the craft, not of the code, but the craft of collaboration. And we should care about that craft as well, not just about the technical crafts. And number 7, which we mentioned earlier, no feature more than a week, 2, whatever. You can decide, but make it brutal. Make it something that at first makes you think, oh, I'm not sure we can do that. And no task more than 2 days. Again, an exception has to be escalated to you. Make it something that's so rare that people actually have to ask for permission. And when you do that, all of a sudden we start looking at things completely differently. We start caring about things in a way that's like, oh, how can I drive value really, really fast? That's what you want to do. So those are our 7 quick hacks. Choose 1 or 2 and start implementing them right now, and write to me after you do it in a week or 2. I'm dying to hear. And to wrap all of this up, I'm gonna send you soon an email with a link to the recording, so you can review this and you can write down the 7 quick hacks if I did it too fast for you. But also, you're gonna have a link to a free diagnostic call with me. This is a help call, not a sales call. This is 20 minutes. We talk about what out of this you can implement, what issues you might be seeing, and my intention is to help you get out with something actionable, tailored to you that you can start doing. No strings attached. I like these. I have a good time talking to people. So do that. The only crux, the caveat is that I only have so many slots available a week. So look at the link, and if you don't see anything, wait another week or let me know, and I'm gonna try and make some more available. So that's that. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. And also, if you weren't on my newsletter, you're gonna start getting those next week. So I'm gonna be there to remind you how to keep improving your team and crack productivity. That's it. I'm wishing you an amazing 2025. Even if 2024 was good, why not make 2025 better? If 2024 was just okayish, don't repeat it. Beat it. Make something amazing out of the next year. I know you can, and I think that at least one of the tips we just talked can help you get there. Okay, so I'm trusting you, and that's it. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you here in the next one.